Welcome to This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. I'm Kent Justice. Our podcast focuses on economic development of the River City and throughout our region. And today we're looking at something happening in the Arlington area called Scenic Visions. Here are our guests, Michael Kerwin, Board President of Scenic Jacksonville. So this is an advocacy organization dedicated to the improvement of scenic beauty and the character of Jacksonville. And Steve Matchett is with us. Steve is director of Old Arlington, Inc., a neighborhood association focused on Arlington's history, economic development, and neighborhood revitalization. So let's start here. What is Scenic Visions? And I know there were a couple of things I saw went, ooh, this would be a great group to talk about. What is Scenic Visions?
Well, thank you for having us, Ken. We're delighted to be here today and tell you about Scenic Visions. It's a new program that Scenic Jacksonville has started this year, and it's an outgrowth of our Great City Symposium. And we've been bringing in speakers from around the country to talk about what other cities are doing and what we can do as well here in Jacksonville. And so what we're doing now is we're coming up with a program to really focus on different parts of our community, highlight what's happening in those parts of our community, and have discussions about how can we enhance the quality of life in those areas. And so our first area that we've selected for our first Scenic Vision program is Arlington. And we're partnering with local organizations in Arlington, and Steve with Old Arlington is one of our partners here.
Yeah, so Steve, you've got to be able to jump on this. Why Arlington? If I get into that, I mean, it's partly because of the incredible history there, and really sounds like the opportunity to make something special in Jacksonville because of that history.
Things are happening in Arlington now, and that's after years of decline. Of course, we were once the boom area of Jacksonville, years of decline. Now there's a lot of good forces at work for revitalization. The mid-century modern has become historic preservation today. So a lot of good bones in Arlington, as Karen Nasrallah calls it.
So let's talk about some of that history, though. You said, hey, it used to be, well, we're going back to when, 1953 or something, when the Matthews Bridge was built, right?
If that's your earliest history of Arlington, it's about 200 years later than that, which actually goes back. And there's a large history of Arlington that's relatively unknown. OAI was formed 30 years ago to start collecting, capturing that history. That resulted in the Norman Studios being saved from demolition at that time, and now it's Duval County's second National Historic Landmark. Yeah. So yes, the history has there's a lot of historical root in Arlington, and a lot of that is featured in this Spotlight series as well. So with that history as a backdrop, we've also got this community redevelopment area initiatives and plan in progress. So we've got a historic preservation and community revitalization forces coming together here now, and it's a great time for Arlington.
Well, so my first introduction to Arlington at all was early at the station. Hey, go over to the university, go to Jacksonville University. I think we were covering a football game or a concert there or something like that. In the 10 years since Tim Cost took over as the president at JU, it seems like both the city and the university have invested in, hey, let's revitalize parts of Arlington, right?
Absolutely, and they're one of our partners in the Scenic Vision project for Arlington this year. And in May, we'll be having a panel discussion at JU, and Tim Cost is going to be one of the panelists. And JU has done so much for the neighborhood, but they have so many more plans too. And so they have a lot of energy they're bringing to the community. So we're excited to be partnering with them on this.
With President Cost, there are always plans.
Exactly.
There's always, okay, the next thing we're going to do to improve.
But unlike a lot of people, those plans tend to get implemented. So we're excited about that.
Cost is a difference maker in that regard.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Let me ask to Tim, because I everywhere I go, I want to give credit to President Cost. For when he came on in 2013, JU had spent the last 20 or 30 years disassociating itself from the Arlington community. It once was very interwoven into the schools and neighborhoods and everything. People would just come and go on the campus. And years of putting fencing up, the campus retreated. internally. And when President Cost came on board in 2013, that was his first thing, was a commitment to the Arlington community. And he did that with $50 million worth of campus expansion. He did it with forming Operation Dolphin, which turned into the CRA plan for the area at work. And most recently, if you go to the Turbo Roundabout in front of JU,
right.
that obelisk that is there is because JU, and he calls that his love letter to Arlington. So his commitment, and we would not be talking this kind of talk today without Tim.
And that really sort of touches upon one of the themes that Scenic Jacksonville has, not only for scenic vision, but for so many other things that we work on, is that we sort of have this overarching theme of you don't have to move to live in a better neighborhood. And you know, it's these little activities that Tim Cost and JU are adding to Arlington, what old Arlington's doing, is just improving the neighborhood, improving the quality of life. And we've got a wonderful city, but it can always be better. And so that's one of the things that we're working to accomplish.
Yeah, I'd love for you to expand even more on that. You don't have to move to be in a better neighborhood. So that's a call to residents to say, hey, we want to be part of building up the community, or
Absolutely.
Rebuilding the community, or what have you, as we're talking about in Arlington.
Absolutely. So, you know, one of the things that we're doing in the Scenic Vision series is helping identify what is the neighborhood, what are its assets, what are its strengths, and what are its challenges. And so this Saturday, we're having a boat tour, and it's leaving from the Chart House downtown, and we'll go up and down the Arlington River, see the boat facilities, the rowing facilities there, the rowing facilities that are dreamed of, as well as the ones that currently exist. We'll go up to see Exchange Island, the great possibilities it has. There's no 10-year-old that goes over Matthews Bridge and looks down, doesn't think about Tom Sawyer's Island. I mean, it's just a wonderful asset for the imagination, but it's something that the community could do more with. And then we'll go up the coast to JU and Ready Point and that area. And then next month, we're going to be having a trolley tour.
Well, let me stop you there for just a second, because on the boat tour is what caught my eye when I saw a news release about it. I'm like, wait, this is a great idea. Steve, what do you think about this boat tour? What are people going to experience when they go on this?
We had a history boat tour a year or two ago, and it was a great revelation for so many people, because most people's exposure to Arlington is down the Arlington Expressway at 60 miles an hour, and
you don't see much.
Stop.
Right.
You don't stop unless you're bumper to bumper, right? Taking a river cruise and seeing the riverfront of Arlington and some of the history, the architecture, certainly the trees, the canopy, the nature, our parks that we have along the river, especially up at the point up there at Ready Point and Blue Cypress and stuff. These are assets that people never see from the expressway or from their roads. And to expose them from the water gives not only just Arlington residents, but the whole city an opportunity to see Arlington from a different lens than what they're accustomed to. Yeah. And it's truly amazing. The beauty of Arlington is there. The tree canopy, a lot of the nature settings are very, very well known. They're just not often observed.
Yeah, Michael, I stopped you. Let me restart the engine here, because you said, hey, coming up in April the 20th, there's a trolley tour. What's this like?
Yeah, the trolley tour is going to show a lot of the sites that you can't see from the water, of course. And so we're going to be starting at College Station, the old Town and Country Shopping Center that JWB has redeveloped. And we're going to be going basically around some of the sites in Arlington that people normally don't think of. And so you know, things like Kona Park. If you grew up in the 70s and you were a skateboarder, you made your way to Kona Park. And it's just little icons like that in the Arlington community that we'll be touching upon.
Yeah, and Steve, what do you want to see people get to experience on the on-the-ground tour here on the trolley?
The on-the-ground tour, I want people to see the opportunities that are out there. This is the part where people drive by and they've seen the blight of the last 15 years, 20 years or so. They've seen the broken out windows on the old offshore power system buildings and that kind of thing. That's their perception of Arlington. So getting up close to it, seeing some of these that are in transformation right now, part of the CRA activities, seeing this change in the works, watching, you know, the College Park is a great example of that transformation. Having people up close and personal with that, I think is going to help people see there are opportunities all over in Arlington, and this is what we're working on today.
So I asked you about this before we came in.
Yeah,
I've got a headline over here, and you may not be able to read it. That's okay, but it says Arlington poised to become the next Riverside Avondale? Big question mark. This was from a newspaper article back in December.
Right.
What do you think about that, Steve? When you that just even to have people ask that question, what does that do?
It blew me away, Kent. It really did. That was following a successful effort with the City Council in preserving the Arlington Federal Savings and Loan Building, which is one of the most iconic examples of mid-century modern architecture in Arlington. And that's a big asset going for us. Arlington has the best and largest collection of mid-century modern in Jacksonville. And this architecture is now over 50 years old. It's become historic in my lifetime too. And so now with that preservation effort culminated with success at the City Council level so far. And that was the newspaper article after that effort. And it validated the reason Old Arlington Inc. was formed 31 years ago. And we did it, as I mentioned, on the model of RAP in Riverside and the model of SPAR in Springfield. And Riverside, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, Riverside was not the place it is today. I can remember you went there only if that big movie had to be shown at the Five Points, and you just went to the Five Points and back out. And then RAP, and then their preservation movement, and Wayne Wood that led that, and all the success that they had. And they become nationally recognized, revitalized, based on their architecture. And so when that came out and that association was made between Arlington and that next Riverside Avondale, that was just a heartwarming affirmation that, yes, that our efforts have been worth it.
So in that headline, I hear some hope and inspiration, and hey, here are the possibilities of what that can look like, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. You've got so many spots in Arlington that are poised for redevelopment. The Regency Center shopping center has been in the highlights as far as the ownership change there.
And what's going to happen there?
Yes. How is that going to be repurposed? And we think that'll be one of the topics that we cover at our panel discussion, as far as having people that are invested in Arlington, what would they like to see happen there? And obviously it has to make economic sense. It has to benefit the community. And let's start the conversation. And we'd love to have the owner share with us some of their ideas as well.
And you touched on this briefly, but May 29th is this panel discussion that you're talking about, and you said it's going to be at JU.
That's right.
Spotlight on Arlington's Future, moderated by Joyce Morgan, and the panelists including Tim Cost, Steve Matchett, and some others there. So with this kind of inaugural program here, what's the hope? What do you want to accomplish with Scenic Visions?
Well, what we want to accomplish is what we're accomplishing right here today. Bring the conversation to Arlington, focus on Arlington, think about, what are the gems there that people really should discover? How can we polish those gems a little bit better? And then let's continue the conversation. But next year we're going to pick a different neighborhood, but we're still going to be keeping Arlington in the spotlight as well. But we hope to keep bringing one neighborhood after another into the spotlight.
Yeah, and you said that there were multiple partners. We're talking about Old Arlington Inc., other partners involved in this?
The Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce Council, we have JU itself, and the Greater Arlington Civic Council. They're all partnering with us. And so Scenic Jacksonville loves to partner with different nonprofits and other organizations in the community. We've done that through the Riverfront Parks Now initiative. And so Scenic Visions, working with Old Arlington and others, is just another example of that.
Yeah. What's your hope for, again, this inaugural program of Scenic Visions, but clearly the focus is on Arlington. What do you hope to have happen there?
I like keeping the spotlight on Arlington right now. And Kent, there's Karen Nasrallah, who's the CRA manager, the Community Redevelopment Area Manager for the City of Jacksonville, for our area, described it as she has 3 or 4 CRAs that she manages, but she liked the bones in the Arlington CRA. And we're 8 years into it. We're starting to see some of the college parks and the Wawas and some other new development pop up and the redevelopment that's going on. And excited to keep that narrative going. There's been a tipping point, and I think that bank building and that preservation effort was part of that finally started turning those negative perceptions of Arlington into Arlington potential.
Yeah. And we're going backwards a little bit, but I referenced earlier, hey, since the Matthews Bridge in 1953 or whatever. Yeah. But Steve, maybe explain a little bit more of that architectural history or the things, how there's been a change in Arlington and maybe some neighborhood decline, but how that also leads to this point where you can say that redevelopment, reinvigorate the area can happen too.
You could use some personal examples that I've come across, especially out of these efforts here. But when the Matthews Bridge was built, Arlington was nothing but some rural lands and a couple hamlets, basically. Some that you know their names, Clifton and Eggleston and Floral Bluff and whatever, but they were isolated rural hamlets. Most of it was by ferry traffic for many, many years until the bridge. So when the bridge opened up all that land to development, well, that was just the time when Jacksonville had this cadre of master architects in the modern movement. And Arlington was a blank canvas. Here you are, here's all this new opened up by the bridge. And so subdivision after subdivision, churches, businesses, many of Jacksonville's most renowned architects have their best works in Arlington. And so that wasn't mid-century at the time, it was just modern architecture at the time, but it's become this historic and very likable, I mean, people love and very popular architectural style. So now it's become something of a preservation effort, and it's codified in our CRA plan as well. That bank building, for instance, was part of the plan to be reused, repurposed. It wasn't slated to be demolished. And so part of our argument was based on the fact that was part of the plan, this repurposing of our mid-century modern architecture.
Remind me where that bank building is. It's not far from the Arlington Expressway,
It's directly across the street from the Old Town and Country, right before you would get onto the Arlington Expressway right there. It was built in 1961 by a
so really kind of around the corner from, was it Jones College?
Jones College, Riverton Towers.
Yeah, and is that another building that, hey, there's opportunity there? A
great example, and we're going to be cruising by that on the boat tour, maybe even on the trolley tour as well. But that was just picked up by, I think it's Ability Housing for a nonprofit. And there's 12 stories there. It's the tallest mid-century in Arlington. Beautiful mid-century work. A couple of those apartments have been on our home tour in previous years as well, too, just from that style. Beautiful stuff.
So before we wrap up, I guess, we talked a little bit about partners. I know some people are going, I want to know more about this. So both Scenic Jacksonville and Scenic Visions here, Michael, how would you say that they need to get connected to more information?
Well, probably the easiest way is to go to our website, scenicjax.org, and you'll see information about both organizations, or both Scenic Visions and all the other things that Scenic Jacksonville's doing. And our contact information's there, so they can reach out to me or Nancy Powell, our executive director, and we'd love to chat.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think probably I can just feel it from you. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And I think around Jacksonville, if we know that neighborhoods like this are growing and whatever, coming back or being better than ever before, I mean, I think that's something that can excite everybody, right?
We certainly hope so.
And it's been it's the message of hope from the last 20 or 30 years. These next subdivision, there's natural rise and decline in subdivision and community history. So. Yes, the last 20 or 30 years have been rather difficult at times, but there's always been that message of hope. And so the next subdivisions, and you can kind of look in Jacksonville and kind of see where the next areas of revitalization are are going to likely occur. And Arlington gives you, just like Riverside gave us and Springfield gave us a model to work from, I think Arlington's going to be a great model for revitalization as well.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate spending the time and talking through that and helping our listeners and viewers know a little bit more about this. So thank you so much for our guests today, Michael Kerwin, Steve Matchett. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. New episodes drop every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. But thanks for joining us for This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition.